North Korea said on Tuesday it is free to test a long-range rocket if it wants. South Korea's Yonhap news agency last week reported that North Korea had erected a new, taller launch tower at its missile base, possibly in preparation for firing a long-range rocket to mark an important national anniversary in October. Speaking to journalists at its UN mission in New York, North Korean ambassador to the United Nations Jang Il-hun said, "North Koreans are free to do whatever we want. We are not bound by any treaty or any obligations of any sort." Jang continued, North Korea had stated in the past they would respond to the military deterrence and pressure of the United States with modernization, expansion and strengthening of our nuclear forces and would not rule out any possibility of doing one of these things. But he said he was not in a position to say with confidence that it will happen. North Korea is banned under UN Security Council resolutions from conducting tests that use ballistic missile technology, but has defied international warnings and sanctions to pursue missile and nuclear programs. North Korea is believed to be developing an intercontinental ballistic missile, but is seen as years away from deployment. It is also working to miniaturize a nuclear warhead to mount on a delivery vehicle. North Korea has conducted 3 nuclear tests, the last in February of 2013, and now calls itself a nuclear weapons state. Ambassador Jang also reiterated that North Korea was not interested in an Iran-like dialogue with the United States to give up its nuclear capabilities, which it said were an essential means against hostile U.S. policy. Jang made it clear North Korea would not give up their nuclear weapons and the mission of their nuclear forces would never change as long as the hostile policy of the United States remained intact. Despite North Korea's position, Sidney Saylor, U.S. Special Envoy for now defunct six-party talks on ending the North's nuclear program, said on Tuesday, the U.S. left the door open to talks with the North when it is willing to end its diplomatic isolation. But Ambassador Jang told journalists he thought the argument for the resumption of the talks was beyond reality. The US and 5 world powers struck a historic deal with Iran this month that will limit Iran's nuclear capabilities in exchange for lifting US, EU and UN sanctions that have crippled its economy. North Korea is also heavily sanctioned by the United States, European Union and the United Nations for procuring equipment related to its nuclear and ballistic missile programs. Indian police overcame a group of gunmen dressed in military fatigues on Monday after a 12-hour battle that ended in a small-town police station near the border with Pakistan, and at least 9 people were killed. Police in the frontier state of Punjab killed 3 unidentified assailants who had pulled up at the police complex in a stolen car with automatic weapons blazing at about 5 a.m. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his top ministers have not made detailed statements on the attack, which came weeks after he met Pakistan's Premier Nawaz Sharif in an attempt to revive stalled relations between the nuclear-armed rivals. Pakistan issued a statement condemning the assault and extending condolences to the government and people of India, pushing back against suggestions by some Indian security sources that the assailants had crossed from Pakistani territory. In the first such attack in Indian Punjab in more than a decade, the gunman shot dead a barber and tried to hijack a bus before rushing to the police station, witnesses said. Throughout the day, regular bouts of small arms fire echoed across the town of Dinanagar and the surrounding paddy fields, some 15 kilometers from the international border, Reuters witnesses said. Regional Police Chief Sumedh Singh Saini told reporters at the scene it was too early to say where the gunmen had come from. They were equipped with automatic weapons, ammunition and grenades. 2 GPS satellite location devices found on the men would be examined for clues, he said. 3 policemen and 3 civilians were also killed, according to the Home Ministry. Police sources said the attackers entered from Pakistan 2 days earlier, a short distance to the north in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, where separatist guerrillas are seeking independence from India. Kashmiri separatist leader Syed Salahuddin, who is based in Pakistan, denied his men were involved. Attacks on security installations by militants dressed as soldiers or police are common in Jammu, but Monday's was the first such assault in Punjab in 13 years, according to data from the South Asia terrorism portal which tracks militant violence. Survivors of Japan's 5-year civilian targeting airstrikes in southwest China's Chongqing during the World War II era are pressing for war crime charges to be brought against the Japanese government and the overdue justice to be brought to those who survived the Holocaust. In end of March 2006, 188 survivors of the bombing of Chongqing embarked on a 10-year odyssey to pursue war crime charges against the Japanese government for its indiscriminate bombings in Chongqing, which killed and injured 30,000 Chinese civilians from 1939 to 1944. The survivors, who aged 82 in average, attended 31 court hearings in Japan and submitted more than 100 pages of documents to testify the Japanese Army's wartime atrocities. However, in response, the Tokyo District Court spent 48 seconds to reject their petition in a court decision announced on February the 25th. Hearing about the news in Chongqing, most of the survivors said they will support their representatives' decision of continuing the lawsuit. However, some others said they might quit the lawsuit in concern of their health condition and financial status. Wang Sifu, 80, a representative of the survivors, said the lawsuit must go on by all means until the Japanese government faces justice. Wang, one of the first batch of claimants who attended the court hearings in Japan, lost his parents to an airstrike conducted by Japanese Air Force in 1939. To keep the memory alive, Wang often shows his family members a black and white photo of him and his parents, the only family portrait left by his deceased parents. According to the statistics from the then Chongqing Air Defense Headquarters, the airstrike in which Wang's parents were killed injured and killed 6,314 civilians, displaced nearly 250,000 people, and caused citywide fires raging for days. More than 70 years have passed, but Wang has not recovered from the trauma caused by the war. He still feels painful when recalling his parents at the place where they were killed. Laying a bouquet at the place where his parents' shelter used to be, Wang told them that he will continue to sue the Japanese government until justice is brought. Six workers have been rescued from a flooded colliery in northeast China's Heilongjiang province, local authorities said. The death toll stood at 4 by Monday morning, and rescuers were racing to search for the other 5 workers who have been trapped in the pit for about 7 days, according to the emergency rescue headquarters at Suxiang Colliery in Hegang City. The 6 workers had no physical injuries, but 2 of them collapsed when they were pulled out of the colliery. Floods inundated the pit at around 5 p.m. on July the 20th, trapping 15 miners. Investigators said the flood was an aftermath of downpours. Hegang is a major coal producer in China. Huxiang Colliery is privately owned with an annual output of 150,000 tons.
Welcome back. China's most advanced offshore platforms were highlighted at the first Military and Civilian Industries Integration Expo in Beijing. Primetime Asia looks to Sydney, Australia, where a 39-year-old male nurse was charged by police with supporting Islamic State militants. An investigation finds workers at Subaru suppliers who said they had no insurance, were fired after being injured on the job, were dismissed without notice, and were pressured to work double shifts. In some tech news, South Korea has developed a bracelet accessory that radiates heat to treat aches and pains, possibly saving you a trip to the doctor. Henry Ramaner again has the details.
China's most advanced offshore platforms were highlighted at the first Military and Civilian Industries Integration Expo in Beijing. The 10-day expo ended on Saturday with thousands of high-tech products being displayed. The models of China's most advanced offshore platforms 981 and 982 attracted many visitors during the expo. The sixth-generation semi-submersible offshore platform was also the world's most advanced platform. It was designed to withstand the extreme weather conditions that could occur once in 200 years and super typhoons. Its changing load could reach up to 9,000 tons. The updated offshore platform 982 was designed to reduce noise and vibration. The platform can hold 180 people working at the same time. Its living area was designed to meet people's need for comfort. Construction has begun of the platform in the shipyard and is expected to be complete by the end of 2016 or the beginning of 2017. Police in Australia have charged a male nurse with supporting Islamic State militants. 39-year-old Adam Brookman was arrested in Sydney after he returned from Syria via Turkey on Friday night. Australian Foreign Minister Julie Bishop spoke to media on Friday. "I would not go to the detail of his specific case, but more certainly there are significant criminal offences attached to being in Syria and Iraq and or supporting or advocating the Islamic State ideology." Brookman told Australian media he went to Syria on a humanitarian mission and had been forced to join Islamic State after he had been wounded. He voluntarily surrendered himself to authorities in Turkey. Australia is on high alert for attacks by radicalized Muslims, including homegrown militants returning from fighting in the Middle East. Nepali Lakhan Rijal worked on a Subaru supplier helping to make leather headrests by hand. One day he woke up with severe pain in his lower back and numbness in his right leg. He says his labor broker told him, "Work or don't come back." Rijal says he lost his job as he was unable to move. Rijal had a previous back injury from before coming to Japan that needed surgery. He now owes a total of $9,000 to a hospital and to the Nepali agent who arranged his transfer to Japan. Osvaldo Nakamatsu, the company which recruited Rijal, says it fired him to help him get severance pay from the government, though he denies seeking any. Muhammad Shafir Kalai is a 28-year-old Indian asylum seeker. He works at Aikida, a supplier to Subaru and Honda that specializes in brake parts and shock absorbers.
My finger got stuck in the chains of the conveyor belt. I was in extreme pain. It was very sudden, and I looked down and part of my finger was missing.
He says the company called his labor broker rather than an ambulance, who kept him waiting half an hour before getting him to hospital. These are just two accounts among the dozens of foreign workers questioned during a Reuters investigation that said they were abused by labor brokers and companies in the Subaru supply chain. Subaru's parent company, Fuji Heavy Industries, says suppliers are responsible for their own labor practices. Subaru's enjoying success, especially in the United States, where it's gained a following for its performance, price and aura of social responsibility. It makes almost all its cars for export in Japan, but is struggling to keep up with demand. What Subaru does not tout is that the boom is made possible in part by asylum seekers and other cheap foreign workers from Asia and Africa. It looks like a bracelet, but this cool mesh accessory is actually radiating heat to treat muscle pains and stiff joints. So it could just save you a trip to the physical therapist's office. South Korean researcher Kim Dae-hyung and his team at Seoul National University developed the stretchable mesh heater to be applied to bendy body parts like the knee or elbow at home. A South Korean researcher at Institute for Basic Science said there were a number of networked silver nanowires inside of conductive rubber. It has very high conductivity so that it can reach at 40 to 45 degrees Celsius heat with a wattage of 1 volt. It is stretchable and can stick to skin easily even if people make some movement. To create the serpentine mesh design, the nanowires are mixed with a liquid elastic material and then poured into a mold that is later placed in between layers of soft, thin insulation. The research team are already working on further advancing the technology and seeing what other applications it can have. Researchers said they were focusing on trying to make this so it can be used not only for treatment but in various industrial fields such as automobile, semiconductors and display devices.
That's it for this week's Primetime Asia. We'll be back at the same time next week with other interesting news and features. To catch our Primetime Asia portal video, you can visit our website at www.rtbnews.rtb.gov.pn. I'm Malini Jaini wishing you a good week ahead and good night in the meantime. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.